Validation, thank you. That's the word I was looking for. So, if we realize that there's nothing wrong with any of these things, there's nothing to criticize, there's nothing to judge. These things are not good or bad, they just are. And when we look at them, and that's where this sort of, the idea of the art of noticing or mindfulness comes in, is if we take the time to look non-judgmentally about how we operate and how we function, we can learn more about what it is that actually makes us happy and the reasons why what we're doing don't make us happy. And then we have this thing, this is a constant theme with me, we have this thing called choice. We have this choice to decide whether we're going to do something or not when we understand the reasons that we're doing it. Before we understand why, we'll continue to do it and not know. We just do it, it's a knee-jerk reaction. You know, someone told me that if such and such is a certain way, then I'll be happy, you know. But if we look around, we don't see that, you know. I used to work in industry for many, many years, and I used to hang out with extremely successful and wealthy people, doctors and corporate people, and the richer and more wealthy and more well off the person was, the more miserable they were. Because they had more to lose. They were constantly in a state of fear of losing things or people taking things from them because they thought these things were the things that were making them happy, and yet they were making them miserable. And it's never enough. It's an endless well of desire. If I have this, then I want this. And when I have that, I want this. I want a bigger car, a bigger house, a better wife, a better husband. I want, to live in a better place. I want to live with people that are like me. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. It's endless. And the farther down that rabbit hole we go, the harder it is to get back, quite frankly, because you convince yourself. If you go to the wealthiest man in the world and you say, the secret to happiness is for you to get rid of everything, step back from your whole life, let all your friends go, let all your acquaintances, the people that do things for you, become nobody with no money, and I guarantee you'll be happy. I'm not sure that there are too many people in the history of humanity that have been able to do that. And yet it is the only way that it's possible, is to give up everything. And then that strange sort of inside-out logic of once you give up everything, everything comes to you. But when it comes, you don't care. You don't need it, so you can truly enjoy it on a level of no grasping or attachment. So there's nothing wrong with being wealthy. There's nothing wrong with having things. There's nothing wrong with someone having a wonderful life. But the only way that that's going to bring that person any joy is if they're not attached to it and aren't afraid to lose it in a moment's notice. I play little games with myself. I have these mental games I play with myself. So I'm sitting at a stoplight in my car, and I see someone crossing the street, and I think, if that person came up to my window and said, I want your car, what would I do? Would I get out of the car and give it to him? Or, take it up a step. They walk up and say, I need your car because I need to go to the hospital. Or I need your car because I have to go rescue something. Would you just get out of your car and go, okay? Most of us wouldn't. We'd want to know why. We wouldn't believe them. We'd think they were scam artists. We would come up with 1,000 reasons why not, or are you crazy? Or, some people just stare straight ahead. They wouldn't even look at the person because, who the heck is this? And I think I would like to be the person who got out of the car or said, get in, I'll take you where you need to go. But not because I didn't trust them, but because I wanted to help them in whatever it was. I would love to be that kind of person. I don't know that we'll ever know if we are until that actually happens. But they're fun games to play with yourself, to think, to stretch your idea of your own limits of what you think is right and wrong, You know, what if, if you're heavily invested in the stock market and you have a retirement program set up for the rest of your life? What if the stock market crashed, you lost everything and you had nothing? How would you feel? You know, would you be okay with it? Most wouldn't, you know. But it's nice. I think it's really beneficial for us to play those games with ourselves. To say, okay, what if I was okay with it? How would that feel? What would I do? And just to see what that feels like. To see whether or not, could I be okay with that? You know, in my own personal life, I played that game a lot in my travels. I've traveled over in the Far East, and I've been in really precarious situations where I didn't know where I was. I had drivers who didn't speak English. We were in the middle of nowhere. Things weren't going right. And I thought to myself, okay, what if I just got out of the car right here? I literally do not know where I am on the continent. What if I were to just get out and walk over to the side of the road and figure out how to live for the rest of my life? Could I do that? You know, could I just forget everything and just like start over? I don't know, but it's certainly a fun little game to play with ourselves. These things stretch our sense of what is acceptable and not acceptable in our lives. We don't have to go do these things, because I think it's just like when we stretch something out and it stays stretched out. The more we stretch it, then our world becomes a little bigger. It doesn't necessarily come back to its same size. We create a bigger world to live in, and we, even though we know that might never happen, we at least have thought about what would it feel like, and what would that do to me, and what would I need to become or think in order for that to be okay. And it really doesn't matter whether it ever happens. It's useful, or you may recoil from it and say, oh gosh, I could never do that. That's beyond my limit. That's okay. Now you know where your limit is. And then you can play. Maybe you stretched yourself too much. Maybe you want to, maybe you want to go back to that later on and go, okay, maybe I couldn't live on the side of the road, but could I smile and be okay with not knowing? Could I not immediately freak out and want to call the Marines to come and get me or whatever, pick a scenario. But I don't think we spend enough time looking at our lives, playing with those kind of scenarios, opening ourselves up to things that we find unacceptable, to allow our hearts and our minds to grow bigger. Because when we do that, we become larger than ourselves, larger than we were. If I look at someone who I think is doing everything wrong in their life and has made terrible choices and is, their life has just turned to, a horrible nightmare. If I look at them and I kind of see how they got there, maybe look at some of the reasons, I don't have to agree with their choices, but if I can accept them on a little bit more of a level of compassion, then my heart's bigger. And that means that when your heart's bigger, you can then use that bigger heart in other areas that you might be able to actually help someone with. The bigger we grow, the bigger we become, the more good we can do in the world. Good's not a great word, but we can be more beneficial, I guess. And a lot of times we're beneficial in ways we don't even know. One of the greatest things in the world is to do something for someone and not have them know you did it. And then to have that sort of smirk on your face that, I know. And then, and then you might even see them later on and they tell you the story. Did you know what happened? And you don't say anything because it's like this beautiful satisfaction inside of you that it's a joy, And then, because as soon as you say, well, I did that, the whole thing collapses in a way. It collapses down to another level of give and take that isn't as amazing as not knowing. You know, they don't know, you're not going to say, it just sits there as this beautiful little bubble in the air, but as soon as you say, well, that was me, it sort of pops the bubble and the person says, oh, well, gee, thank you. And then it turns into turns into different emotions, you know? So again, just something to have fun with if you want. Life to me is all about learning how to become larger and how to become more than what I was the day before. And in that way, I believe that we're of a benefit to others. I'm not talking about being the best do-gooder you can think of and being the person who goes and helps this group and contributes this and contributes that. You know, there's a story in one of the sutras of the Buddha where one of the kings comes up to him and says, how much merit meaning like spiritual benefit or reward, how much merit would I get if I were to build you 100 monasteries? And the Buddha said, none at all. Because that doesn't mean anything, you know. And he knew what the king meant. He meant, if I use my wealth to do something for you, will I benefit from it? And it's like, no, you won't. The world might benefit from it, but you won't, because your reason for doing it was not from the heart. It was trying to do something to help himself in a very selfish way, in a very greedy way. So, you know, I believe that the benefit we all have, and the one thing that we are in complete control of in this life, is to make ourselves better from the inside out. And then the effect we have on others is not a conscious effort. You benefit people, you benefit situations by just being you. I can't put it into words, and I can't explain it. I can't put a name on it, because it's beyond name and form. It's beyond those kind of things. It's, you know, and as soon as we try and explain it, then we get into this sort of metaphysical gobbledygook and kind of thing, you know, and I don't like those kind of things personally. Now, this is a personal opinion, all right? The whole concept, and I've talked about this before, but I'll re-mention it. The whole idea of trying to make our lives better by thinking good thoughts. Some people call it manifesting. Some people call it, you know, other things that, you know, if I just think certain things, then all of the energies of the world are going to coalesce and create exactly what I want. I believe, and it seems to me as I look around the world over time and history, that what happens, you can do that. But what happens is you don't get what you want. You get what you need. And you may not want what you need. It may be the exact opposite of what you want. But you will get what you need to move on and become more than you are. And then when that happens, when something doesn't come that you tried to manifest, or something comes that's worse than what you already had, you start to doubt the process and say, well, I don't know why it didn't work. It must have been because I didn't do it at the right phase of the moon. Or I didn't, you know, the snake I caught wasn't the right snake. Or I don't know, you know, whatever it is, whatever the ritual is.